We are learning more about that rule change for the Ohio GOP. That would mean 2 of 3 candidates in a state central committee race could not be seated. Tonight, Ben is talking to the one candidate who may benefit the most from this rule change. Ben has the reality check you won't see anywhere else.
I told you Tuesday about the race for a state central committee here in Ohio. 3 candidates on the ballot for that seat in District 14. I also told you that after early voting had already started, a rule change was voted for and approved by GOP members. Now, that rule change states that in order to be seated as a state central committee member, candidates must have voted in the last 3 Republican primaries. The rule, though, came at a very inappropriate time. As I mentioned, after early voting was already underway. But what's even more shocking, that by passing this rule, it appeared that 2 of the 3 candidates couldn't be seated. In short, 3 candidates are running, but only 1 will win by default. I sat down and talked with that candidate, Gregory Simpson.
I think the early voting had already started. And then it's kind of like they changed rules in the middle of the game. And I feel bad about the people who had filed, although it may have benefited me a little bit.
Well, it may have benefited him more than just a little bit. Simpson says he was against the rule, and if seated, he would move to change it in the future.
The fact of the matter is, I just think if I was on the committee, had I been up there, I would have voted against that rule.
But the problem here for Simpson really is that he can't win. If he wins the race, fine, he's seated. But if he loses the race and he's still seated, well, that means he's never seen as a legitimate candidate.
But primarily, I just think that they should change the rule. If I get seated and I get elected, I'm going to work to make sure the rule is a little bit more even-handed.
But there is something more that I've learned. Scott Nichols, one of the GOP candidates in the SEC race, actually voted in 2008 in the Democratic primary. Now, I spoke with him today. He says it was part of something called Operation Chaos. You might remember this was pushed by Rush Limbaugh to create a longer primary season in the Democratic primary in 2008. He also says other than that one primary, he's been a lifelong Republican and he voted Republican in the general election in 2008. I also talked with the 3rd candidate in this race, Kurt Hartman. Mr. Hartman says there is another twist here. The state may have thought that they were pushing him out of not being seated, but not so. According to the rule that was passed, candidates would have to have voted, as I told you, in the last 3 Republican primaries. But Hartman says the rule goes on to say that it's evidenced by the request for an absentee ballot. Hartman says his vote in the 2010 primary wasn't counted, but he did request that absentee ballot, something easily provable. So in short, that rule change to bump 2 of the 3 candidates might not have worked out quite the way that some had hoped. And the plot thickens. At the end of the day, though, here's what you need to know. The problem with this rule, it hasn't changed since I first told you about it Tuesday. The problem itself isn't the rule. The GOP can really impose any rules they choose. The problem, again, is the timing. Doesn't really matter what you think about protecting the Republican Party. Doesn't matter if candidates voted Democrat in the past. Doesn't matter if they didn't vote at all. What matters is the rights of the voter. That when they cast their ballot, the person whose name is there can be seated if they get the most votes. It's really not that complicated. And that is Reality Check.